Hey guys, Sean, Leslie the Dummies. Salt Supply S2. This is the Salt Supply S2, not the carcass. Well, the carcass is actually inside because it's become parts. As you know, I've been experimenting with bolt springs. Bolt springs generally haven't really achieved any huge results. This goes across most of the markers that I've tested them in. But there's something funny about this one. You guys know, I told a little white lie, of course, and those are the only lies I tell. I promise you that. I do this all for you guys, and I don't sell anything here. I'm just ideas, trying to find solutions that don't cost you an arm and a leg. So that being said, I have two other of these kind of knockoff versions. We'll call them pre-production versions of the Salt Supply S2. I was introduced to a nice fellow via email, Aaron. Aaron, hi, how's it going? And he shared something with me, and I think I was already barking up that tree, and it means that you guys are paying attention. There are people out there that are much like me that just don't have YouTube channels. I can't think for everybody, but man, this guy was thinking on his feet. So he just assembled his salt. This goes along with the bolt spring, I promise you. And what he noticed is when he compressed his bolt, it did not actually reach the barrel. So what that means is that air is escaping down the feed tube here. He has a solution that I may share if it comes my way. My solution is bolt springs. What I found, this is the real Salt Supply right here. When I compressed my bolt, it fell short of the barrel, like Aaron's did. Which is why I started experimenting with springs that were shorter and could compress that bolt so the actual tip would make it into the barrel and all the CO2 blast would go where it's supposed to go. But in disassembling my other two markers, I found they both went far enough to just engage the barrel. Now, just engage the barrel. There are some variances, obviously, that no manufacturer can account for, and I wonder if that's even just have an anomaly. In which case, though, I've moved that spring from one of those other markers into this one. So it's a factory spring, so to speak, just to try it out and see, am I crazy? Am I not? So I won't make this test a whole bunch longer than it has to be. So I have a Grimberg Jewel loaded up in here. Obviously I didn't put the case on because it's time consuming when I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Factory back cap is on there. For all intents and purposes, this is a factory Salt Supply S2. The restrictor is not drilled. Let's see what it does. I hear a little bit of a leak actually, which is odd. But let's go for it. $2.52. So that spring shot is hot as my shorter spring. So my theory is, anyways, there are some variances that can't be accounted for during manufacturing. And my goal is to hopefully eliminate those and find the maximum. So let's just load one more in there and see. Blow my balls off. Breech loading here, guys, so I gotta use a little stick to poke it in. $252. Exactly the same. There's like 20 seconds in between there, so there's something else that I want to talk about, and my best numbers were using a shorter spring, but I was also testing in this mode, and I wonder if my heat transfer for my hand has anything to do with that number, because I was not able to achieve that number again. So let's give it a minute. Approximately 1 minute has elapsed. And I'll tell you something else while I got you here. I accidentally did leave my salt charged overnight, and yeah, it was fine. So there's that. Right? Right? There is definitely heat transfer going on here, which is throwing my results off, because that number is pretty much what I was seeing in my early testing. But as soon as I put the case back on, I was back down to that 252. That says something about CO2 and obviously ambient temperature, because that was the third shot and that thing hammered. Now what I want to see is that kind of velocity right from the get-go inside a clamshell. So stay tuned. I'm working through some of those issues. Obviously, I'm not going to add any kind of heater or anything like that, but that jump, it's achievable. I know it is. I know it is.